to this week's episode of Tired and Thriving, a podcast recognizing just how tired and exhausted we all are while discussing ways to still thrive. I'm your host, Samantha Gray, and this week's guest is Teri Hendrich. Teri is a fine art painter, color supervisor in the animation industry, astrologer, and mother of 2 young kids. She will be hosting her art solo show called Venus in the 12th from February 1st to March 1st at Gallery 839 in Burbank, California. Thank you so much for sharing time with me, Teri.
Yeah, of course. Excited to be here.
Before we get into your upcoming exhibit, what is it about art that makes you thrive?
Well, I think even as a young kid, it was a way that I could express myself in a language that anyone could understand. In some ways, like a wordless language. And it just always kind of propelled me to create and express myself in the visual format.
Mm-hmm. So when did it start for you? Like, just as a kid? And
yeah, I mean, when I was, like elementary school, I would just draw and color and, like win like coloring contests like at the local grocery store and things like that. But I was also always curious to learn really any subject. So for a long time, I actually didn't commit to being an artist until probably like later in high school when I was like, oh no, like this is what I really want to do. Since some of the other electives I used to take were like music classes. But once I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be playing the saxophone as a profession. So like I really should just focus more on, learning more about art and improving my skills in that area.
Yeah, like honing in on it.
Yes.
Well, since you did other arts, was that primarily what you did like growing up in terms of, playing saxophone? Or because I remember in high school I did sports as well. And so I like feel common ground with you being like, oh yeah, I explored a bunch of different things before I was like, no, this is where I zeroed in on. Did you have that experience as well of like, oh, you were in band, you were also like,
Well, I wasn't sporty. Like I was definitely more, I kind of introverted and creative. So yeah, I mean, I did focus more just in the arts in general. So yeah, if it wasn't music, then yeah, it was the visual arts. And I mean, even after high school, I actually chose to go to community college so that I can continue just learning anything that I still hadn't been exposed to. So I just signed up to any class that interested me. So I took like speech class and nutrition and astronomy and, and inevitably I also took like art history and just more arts classes. And, through that experience, I was like, okay, yes, for sure. Like I need to be an artist. And so I ended up kind of choosing that as my field of specialty once I did progress onto, art school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which art school did you go to?
I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was also part of the reason why I even kind of allowed myself to explore things in community colleges, because Art Center is kind of known as sort of like hardcore. Like you need to know you need to be able to hit the ground running when you like go to school there. So I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing once I actually started school there. So I'm grateful that I did take that kind of extra time to just allow myself to explore things in community college.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's something where not a lot of people sometimes go towards, because they're just like, oh, I have to go either to Cal Arts or, I have to get into art school right away, right after high school. So I think that's really amazing that you took the time and we're able to see that and just be like, oh yeah, I should make sure I know what I'm doing first before I like get into this.
Right. And you save money too, getting your like general ed credits at community college.
So true. What was your journey into making art your career?
Well, so when I decided like, yes, this is what I'm going to be doing, actually the first jobs I took were I always have an art related position.
Really?
So, and it did start in community college. I just saw a job posting that a local family wanted a private art teacher for their children who were like in elementary school. So I figured I can do that. And I, worked with that family, and they, I guess, enjoyed my teaching skills with the kids so much I just would keep getting referrals for other like parents who were like, oh, can you teach my kid? And so I actually kind of had my own little private business teaching kids art in, around where I grew up, which was Glendora. And so I did that for a few years, and I think continued it when I started Art Center, but then it got to a point where it was a little unsustainable, where I was like, okay, now I need to just focus on actually like art college. And so I took a pause, but then even after I finished Art Center, my first job out was as an architectural illustrator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that actually ended up being kind of the most, I guess, informative job that really influenced how I even work now in animation. Because at the time that I went to art school, they still didn't emphasize the computer arts too much. Like I did take some computer classes, but it wasn't like any big requirement or anything.
Yeah.
So I actually graduated without really knowing Photoshop. Not very well, at least. I graduated and like would still just use like one layer for like everything.
Yeah.
But this architectural illustration job, the people kind of who helped supervise it and like kind of created the program for people to work in, they really kind of perfected at using Photoshop to like the artist's advantage, and would create these kind of very systemized steps of like Photoshop actions. So like every part of the process, you would just hit an action, and it would do, help you facilitate that step. So we like, I know I got to the point where, this job was basically creating renderings of like kind of the front face of a track home.
Oh, wow.
And so, and the company, just like in animation, they're like, do as many as you can a day.
Yeah,
That's what we want to see. But because of the system that they had set up, like I could actually do like one an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was very efficient, like way of working. And I've continued that into what I do today. And it is actually kind of surprising when I start on a new animated project, and like I know these like useful tools, but not many people are aware that they're there and can help them facilitate their work. So,
yeah. That's always like, it's that thing where I think it's amazing how, because I think in some ways there's some artists that feel like, oh, you have to do everything one way. There's only like a straight way to do it. But then you get stories like this where you did art with a different job and were able to use certain tools or like learn certain organization that now applies to animation that helps you and like makes you more efficient. And I think it's like, I think more people need to hear that, or like, I don't know if I'm just trying to be, I don't know. I think it's that thing where it's like everybody's, differences like will come help make a culmination of like a better like pipeline and project.
Yeah, and I'm always open to like hearing how other people are working, because oftentimes you do learn like some new trick. So even though like now I work as a supervisor, so I'm helping to lead the team, like it's not uncommon for an artist who I'm supervised to say, kind of start doing some sort of kind of Photoshop trick, and they won't even tell me like right away, but I can see it in their work, and I'm like, and I'll like message them like, what are you doing? Because I want to know your secret. and so I've accumulated this knowledge just working with other people and just sharing what it is like that they know and they're doing.
That's why like I really love us being in such a collaborative space, because we get to share that knowledge, because we get to work on all these different projects. I always feel like, oh, I know this program. And then, yeah, I'll go to a new job and then they're like, here's 10 things you didn't know, or, or you get to teach that to somebody else. And I think that's really special.
Right. Yeah.
Has doing art as a day job or even as a fine painter ever made you tired?
Well, definitely with, in my trajectory when I, did work as an architectural illustrator and then I eventually found my way into working into animation, I definitely found myself starting to get consumed by the industry, and I did kind of lose myself for a while, and my kind of personal art career as a fine art painter sort of went on the back burner, and I was just focused on like getting the next gig and trying to make sure my animation portfolio was kind of up to par. And also along the way, I met my husband who works in animation and we got married and had kids, so then all that sort of just sidetracked my own like personal goals as an artist. And so yeah, it was several years until I finally was like, oh, I need to get back into why I started this to begin with, and really make a focused effort on my own work.
Yeah. So did those few years, was it after having both kids, or like what would be like the timeline?
Yeah, well, definitely I remember kind of after having my first child, there was a moment where I was starting to get inspired to paint again, and I did create one painting that actually was like well received, but I kind of just made that one and then kind of still didn't focus yet fully on painting until after I had had my second child. So yeah, a couple years later.
Yeah. Being a mother of two young children and a working mom in animation in America, how much time are you able to give your personal work at the end of the day?
Well, so the way I schedule it is that I have one evening each week that I dedicate to like my studio art time, and it has to be evening because that's when my kids are asleep. Like I wouldn't be able to get anything done during the day. But yeah, I realize if I, normally on the weekend, like Sunday is kind of when things like, you've kind of maybe settled things with the family and like spent time with your partner, and like so that Sunday evening is kind of like my time. And but it is also like just a few hours, but I kind of grew to appreciate the fact that those hours add up. So like even if like I don't finish something right away, like at least I did some work to then pick back up the next week, and over time that'll add to something.
Yeah. Then how long on average does it take to finish a painting? Or
well, normally I work kind of on the small side. Like I don't know, some of my paintings previously were more like maybe 12 inches by 12 inches, so something like that I could finish within like a month. But some of the bigger pieces, which are going to be part of my new art exhibit, they were much bigger, and I mean, I would also take about a month. With this last one, I also would allow myself to spend other days of the week in my studio. So like, I don't know, maybe like a Wednesday night when it like nothing was going on, I was like, I would tell my husband like, I'm going to work in my studio tonight so I can try and get a little bit more done on this painting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so on these bigger ones, I still average about a month to a month and a half. Luckily, I did have a bit of a hiatus, which was actually like a fortunate timing for being able to focus more on my personal art during that time.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for someone who is struggling to find the balance and time between their work, their life, and their passions that make them happy?
Well, I would say, if if your passions are really your passions and you want to, dedicate time to it, that it is about carving out like time in your week of like, okay, during the day, yes, I'm going to be working my day job, but this day at this time, I'm going to be doing like my passion project, like no matter what, like even if like friends invite me out to dinner or there's a union meeting or something, I'm going to say, no, sorry, I'm busy. I have this other like dedicated appointment that is meaningful to me. So that's how I've approached it. I mean, I could get into like astrology and tell you why. Like I specifically have the motivation to like work no matter what, but not everyone has that natal placement.
Oh my gosh, I would love to hear it. Because I do want to talk about astrology. That's so cool. Well, all right. Well, since we're starting to talk about astrology, let's get into your solo show. First, have you done other solo art shows or been in any kind of gallery shows before?
I did exhibit kind of more regularly in group shows right after I had graduated art center. So, let's see, this is like maybe around like 2005 to 2007. I was, showing somewhat regularly and actually did have a solo show. And at the time, that was kind of just an accumulation of all the works I had been doing, like right out of college. And they stylistically looked, good together, although there wasn't necessarily a cohesive story. But yeah, so I did have a show once. It was like at a yogurt shop, but it was Beverly Hills. So I always have to say, well, it was Beverly Hills. But
was it because I did look through your Instagram and I saw some series that you were posting like from 2007, and you wrote that you liked the tutorial aspect.
Yeah. So my art then was also, a little different. It wasn't as like colorful, but I liked how instruction manuals were a way to communicate without words. Mm-hmm. So I kind of would use those, visual cues to communicate more like emotional kind of topics. And I don't know. I also, because they were emotional, I wanted to kind of give them a tongue-in-cheek kind of vibe to them so that it wasn't so depressing. Yeah. There was like some sort of like humor in it. So yeah, that's kind of what my work was a few years ago, until more recently where I sort of reworked my style to be more expressive and colorful.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you tell the listeners about your upcoming solo show, Venus in the 12th?
Yeah, so I will have a new exhibit of art that will be opening February 1st of 2024 at the Animation Guild. And within the Guild building, they have a gallery space that they offer to members to use, and they change up the shows once a month. So my show will be consisting of 12 acrylic paintings, and 7 of the paintings actually create a narrative if you view them like kind of in sequence, like one after the other. Ooh. And the narrative is inspired by my own astrological natal chart and placements. So the title of the show, Venus in the 12th, that actually is me, because everyone has a planet that represents them in their own birth chart. And so for me, I'm a Libra rising. That means Venus is my planetary ruler. So, when you look at my chart, like the planet Venus is basically a signifier for me. Mm-hmm. And when I was born, Venus was in the 12th house.
Yeah. So because there's like 12 houses in the wheel, basically. Yeah. Astrological wheel.
Yeah. And once I like kind of connected the dots and was like, oh, okay. So the planet that represents me is in the 12th house, and that happens to also be the like darkest, most challenging house.
Oh my gosh.
Like if you ask any astrologer, like, oh, what's the house that is the most challenging? Like they would all say, oh, it's the 12th house. So, I mean, instead of though like being like bummed about it, it was kind of more like it kind of validated a lot of my life experiences, and so it just made me want to explore it more. And the more I kind of looked at not only my chart, but even just learning the language of astrology, like I just could see this narrative forming, and so that's what inspired the art in this show.
Oh, wow. So I know with astrology, the placement, because obviously the stars, the Earth's rotating, so the star placements will always change. But with yours, is this set in a general, like, of your 12 houses, or is this set in a moment of time in your life?
So, well, this is based on the moment I was born.
Okay.
Was Venus in the 12th house. And, if you want to get into technical astrological terms, it's technically the tropical system and whole sign houses, since you can use different systems depending on how you want to practice your astrology, but that's the most common.
Okay, yeah, so this is just based on what the chart was like when you were born.
Yeah, a snapshot of the sky.
Amazing. So what is the, so only 7 pieces have a narrative to it, and then...
Yeah, and then there's a few like supporting pieces that I'm making that visually connect and, also have, astrological themes to it. There's actually even another layer to this because when I set out to make these art pieces, and once I realized like, okay, yes, I'm going to make this about astrology, I felt obligated to really delve deep in the subject. So actually at the end of 2022, I signed up for Austin Kopic's Fundamentals of Astrology course, and he kind of really dives deep into the material, like everything that you need to know to read an astrological chart. And something I kind of learned in that class and realized was that not only could I make this art about astrology, but I could utilize astrology to make the art magical. Because there's it's basically practicing astrological magic, which consists of looking ahead at what planetary alignments are coming up and finding an auspicious moment in time to basically initiate a project. And by initiating a project at a specific auspicious time, you're basically giving it that kind of special energy of the moment that's existing in the like skies, that just like anyone's birth chart. It's basically that idea. So that's what I did, is I looked ahead, and once I had kind of planned out like, okay, these are the paintings I'm going to do, then it was also, and this is the exact day and time I'm going to start them, so that they'll have this auspicious energy sort of connected in them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like, it's like intention plus, I feel like.
Yeah. So it's, I'm definitely proud of the artwork just on its own, but it is kind of an extra bonus of like, if anyone ends up collecting them, that like you will also have like a magical like painting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You'll have a set that's like full of energy.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. So what can people expect from opening night on February 1st?
Well, doors will open at 5 p.m. and I'm planning to have like nice hors d'oeuvres and like wine and tea out for guests who are there. And I figure I'll give people some time to arrive, and then at 6 p.m. I'll be doing a reading of my poem, which is also titled Venus in the 12th. I'm also very proud of that. I actually haven't shared it anywhere yet, but it's basically describes the narrative that I have in my paintings, but in the form of poetry. So I do talk about Venus, and also Mars plays a role in the story that I have. So I'll be reading that poem, and then afterwards I'll be sitting down to sign books for whoever would like to get a copy of the book, which I'm publishing along with the art show, also called Venus in the 12th. And it consists of all the paintings that will be exhibited, as well as the copy of like the poem. The book also has a foreword by an astrologer who I'm currently studying with. Her name is Ada Pembroke, and her focus is narrative astrology. So so I thought it was perfect to kind of enhance my astrology education with her classes.
Yeah, definitely. So since astrology is such a huge subject matter for your show and everything that we've talked about, how does astrology help you in your life? Like, does it give you a stronger sense of who you are? Does it help heal past traumas? Does it help you figure out how to handle upcoming things in the future? Or
yeah, it definitely helps to contextualize what has happened in my life, and gives added meaning to experiences I've had, and also sheds light on some scenarios that have happened, and I'm like, well, like, what was that about? And then I like look back at the chart, and then it's clear, like, okay, yeah, that's what that was about. So I think just helping to enlighten like my life, and I think even just add meaning, and I also like the magical aspect to it. Like, astrologers can't say why astrology works, but someone kind of I follow said, like, once you see it work, you can't unsee it. And so there is kind of a quality of like, yeah, life actually is magical. Like, if you just kind of have to open yourself up to that possibility. And I feel like astrology has helped open me up to that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I actually want to go back to astrology real fast. I mean, we've been talking about it the whole time. Like, what am I going back to? But, like, what would you say that when you started taking astrology classes, did you read up on any books beforehand, or did you have any idea? Like, can you go into a class basically blind in a sense?
Yeah, I didn't really know a whole lot about astrology other than what my husband had told me, because he was the first one to really get into it, and he took a professional astrology course before I did. So there were little things he would mention to me, but I couldn't necessarily understand like a chart or anything. At least with Austin's class, and even like Ada's class, like they both structure it that you can really come in cold, and they'll walk you through each step to be able to like get you up to speed to becoming a professional astrologer.
Yeah. Ooh, is that a goal of yours?
When I decided to take these classes, I didn't necessarily think I would be doing like astrology readings. It was kind of more for my own education of like, I just want to learn how to read a chart and make sense of all like these little symbols.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I've definitely tried on my own to try and understand it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so much.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that like I wish more people understood about it, is, because I think it's easy to dismiss when you think there's not much to it, but it's like, oh no, actually it's like incredibly complex. It's like way too complex for like to just kind of discuss in like everyday conversation, and that everyone's gonna get it right away. Like, yeah, you do have to like dedicate like a year just to understanding like the basics.
Yeah. So coming back to your work, when I look at your work, especially, what you've shown from Venus in the 12th house, it's very dreamy, has an ethereal feel to it. It has with like night darkness with color and so much, brightness. And I really love this aspect that you do where you have a lot of natural movement, which I've seen you in your sample videos. You've like shown you do with your brush work, but it exists and breathes in tandem to your human subject matters who they aren't like dancing or anything. They're actually pretty still as they observe what's around them in the surrounding, and I think it's really beautiful. But is there anything you want people to particularly feel or take away from experiencing your show?
Well, first, thanks for describing my art in that way. That's cool to hear. Well, yeah, definitely. I do want like to communicate sort of like a dreamy aspect to this. I mean, that's part of the quality of the 12th house is also that's where your dreams are. And,
oh, really?
And it's also a dark house. So that's kind of another quality of why some of the pieces kind of are darker in value. And I guess kind of the overall feeling I'd like people to take away is that even though you might find yourself in a dark place, that there you can find sort of hope and color there. It's just a matter of opening yourself up to observing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's so relatable because, especially with everything going on in the world and in life recently, I feel there's so many people that and I made this whole podcast, Tired and Thriving, right? Because it feels so daunting, but I guess we can relate it to that. It's like you said, even in the darkness, you can still find something to thrive through and to find light in. So, ooh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the storyline also is about finding hope.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's something that kind of comes through, especially in the poem, that's kind of will accompany the art.
Yeah. So you brought your book with you, which I was loved. Is there, because I saw when you opened it up a little bit, there I saw writing on one of the pages. Is there a little excerpt or is there a little story that goes with each of these in the book or?
Well, the way I structured it was that this poem actually I laid it out so that each page goes with that part of the poem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that's structured, but I do have also supporting text, just what I was even thinking when I came up with the project, and also more of technical art process type language is included in the book.
Yeah. And then you said you're selling your book on opening night, right?
Yes.
Are you going to be selling it the other days, or is it only physically in person you're selling on opening night?
Well, opening night, I'm considering that the date the book will be published. I'm self-publishing it, so really any day could be the day, but I figured I'm going to make it part of the show opening, kind of occasion. Mm-hmm. So, I'll be there to sign them if people are interested in that. But otherwise they'll be available from that point on, either from my website. I will also plan to have some copies at the gallery that,
okay.
And I'll have a Venmo code. So even if I'm not there and it's, now some other date in February, someone could still visit the gallery and have a chance to purchase a copy if they like.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. And then what are the hours for the gallery?
So normal hours, I believe, are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Yeah, it's basically office hours for the building.
Yeah. I love that. Office hours that you could just like go see some beautiful paintings and
right, yeah.
Is there anything we haven't touched on that you feel is very important to mention and talk about to prepare everyone listening for Venus in the 12th?
I mean, I think we've covered most of it. Other than, I hope people come with like an open mind and, to also even like learning a little bit more about astrology. Because I'm planning to put like some signage around in the gallery just to help introduce people to like some ideas. For example, one of the pieces in the show is entitled A Portrait of the Artist and Her Stelliums. And I know not everyone's going to know what the word stellium means.
I do not know what it means. I am one of those people.
So, I can share with your listeners now that a stellium is when 3 or more planets are positioned in the same sign at any given time. So, that doesn't happen all the time, but it's also not too uncommon. But if you have it's basically a concentration of planets in your birth chart, then likely it's going to say something important about you. And so that's what a stellium is. And I happen to have 2 stelliums.
Ooh.
So that's why I was inspired to create an art piece about it.
I want to go back because I remember you saying that you were like, there's something in my chart that, sorry. There's something in my chart that, that says that I like have to push through and I have to like make things. What part of the chart is that?
Well, that is my Mars conjunct moon, which is in the 10th house. But, your moon is your body and it tends to want comfort and rest. But Mars is all about action and like go. And so basically I have that Mars next to my moon saying like, sorry, body, you're not resting tonight.
Oh my
gosh. We're gonna get this job done. Like, and so that's basically my like operating system, like constantly. So even if I like am like, oh, I'm gonna run a bath and try and relax tonight, like my Mars is like, oh, but you're gonna be on your phone, like planning out your next social media post. So try and relax while you're doing that.
Yeah. And I think it's like important to say because, obviously there's people that either don't believe in mysticism or astrology and they'll be like, oh, you only you only attribute that because you saw that and then, and then you attribute it to yourself. But it's something that you read, like that you read the description and you're like, oh, I've always done that, right?
Yeah, it's definitely more that, and especially when it came to learning more about Venus in the 12th, and just the fact that 12th house is also about like solitude and just sort of being in this hidden place, and I definitely identified with that, it's, growing up, and so when I learned that, I was like, yes, that I identify with that already based on my experiences.
Oh, well, everybody needs to start getting into astrology.
Oh, and I could also mention, I have on my art website a blog, and recently I've been adding more kind of blog posts about astrology, again, to like just introduce people to different topics. So I do have a post on there that'll explain how you can find your planetary ruler, for example.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna be checking out for that. So cool. Well, is there anything recently or in the past couple years that helped you thrive and feel passionate and reinvigorated?
I mean, what really inspires me and like kind of keeps me going is the positive feelings I get through like relationships with other people. I mean, I guess it would just be corny and like just like the feeling of love is like, you know, just really inspires me and kind of propels me to kind of create the work that I do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Just like, ooh, what kind of love? Like romantic, or is it familial, or?
Romantic. Yeah.
Oh. I love that. That's very cute. In the vein of funsies, is there a random animal fact you can tell me?
Oh, animal fact. Ooh. The one fact is just depressing. I don't
Oh
no. Yeah, because I currently don't have a pet, so I'm like trying to think of like, oh, what?
Yeah, I've had, and it could just be like an experience.
Well, I guess just now I'm thinking of like the whole mysticism and like, well, when I did have a pet, I would consult like animal psychics, and like they really would communicate with my pet and tell me things that they would only know like living in my house. So yeah, I would say like animals really can communicate with pet psychics.
That's amazing. Yeah. Oh, but you did that before when you had a pet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there was it was a dog, and he would always jump up on my bed, and one day he just kind of stopped doing it, but I didn't really think much of it, and I happened to go see a pet psychic kind of just for fun, not really thinking about what I was going to ask, but they're like, "Oh, you need to give your dog a supplement cuz like his joints are sort of hurting." And once I did, he would jump on the bed again.
Oh my god.
So yeah, it was like legitimate and like helpful. So
did they need to see the dog in person, or was it?
I can't remember. I think my dog may have been with me, but I know in general psychics don't need to see, you know, either the animal or person in person to do a reading.
Yeah. Ooh. I should see a psychic to see what Arthur's thinking about, because sometimes he just meows at me and I'm like, I don't know. As part of the show, I'd like to pull out a tarot card for the episode, because who knows, maybe you'll need to hear it today. So I have my Universal Fantasy Tarot deck, and I'm just going to, what is it? Like, I want to say dice it up, but that's not right. I'm shuffling the cards.
Right.
And yes, and you just tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. And then if you can pick a card. Ooh, 7 of Cups. If you can describe what you're looking at.
So there looks like there's a knight on a horse at the bottom of this card, looking up at a series of towers, and at the top inside portion of each tower is a cup.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it looks also, okay, so each tower at the bottom has a lit arched doorway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I never noticed that before. So the description says, dreams can sometimes bar the progress of the traveler who does not know how to distinguish them from reality. Do you feel like that resonates in any way?
Wait, what was the first part? It doesn't distinguish from reality?
Yeah, it's like dreams can sometimes bar the progress of the traveler who does not know how to distinguish like dreams from reality.
Well, that sounds 12th house.
So very relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with like looking at the card, it's also looks snowy too to me. With like cloudy, there's no sun in the sky. But it also, because you noticed Adora, so I think you would have been able to go into the towers to get the chalice, but when I was looking at it, I was thinking like, oh, he's not even seeing the doors. He's just looking at how hard it is to reach up to the cups. But if only he saw the lighted doors, then he can find the entrance and like the way up there to get to them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if anything, it's like kind of seeing a lot of options and kind of opportunity, like, oh, which one should I try and get first? I feel like that's what the knight is thinking.
Ooh, so it's kind of like prioritization in a sense.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Or yeah, like which option are you going to choose? You got a lot of options. But none of them look like the wrong option either.
Yeah, they all look pretty good cups.
Good cups. There's some good cups in there. So I feel like the takeaway this week can be that even if it looks like you have a lot of options, or it seems like the tasks or the reward is so high up and daunting, they're all good options. So it's just a matter of committing to which one that you're going to prioritize and which one you want. So don't let the illusion of like choice fool you into either freezing up or like not choosing at all. Just I think committing to a decision and sticking to it would be like my interpretation. I don't know if you feel if you see something differently.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the opportunities are there, and it's just a matter of deciding where you want to start first.
Yeah. So there we go. There's our tarot for the week. Well, thank you so much, Teri, for being here and talking with me. Is there anything you want to promote about yourself? Is there somewhere you want people to find you?
Well, the best place to find me is on my website at terihc.art, and that's spelled TERIHC.art. And that's where I'll have all the information about my art show, and also where I'll be making my paintings available. If you go there now, if you go to terihc.art/events, there's a write-up for the Venus in the 12th gallery show, but there's also a YouTube video that walks through each painting, and I discuss the astrology behind it and really in depth of kind of what I was going for with the series. So that's definitely worth checking out if people are interested in learning more. Other than that, you can find me on social media under the handle Color Sorceress. I'm most active on Instagram, but I also have like a TikTok and a YouTube channel, like I mentioned, and Facebook as well.
Nice. And then don't forget to check out Venus in the 12th house. Come on opening night on February 1st from 6 p.m. to 9 or 5.
Yeah, doors open at 5. They've kind of just recently shifted the openings to be kind of earlier in the day. So yeah, it's from 5 and it'll close at 8 on Thursday.
8. But be there at 6 p.m. to hear Teri's poem that goes with the paintings. That will be very cool to see in person. And don't forget that the exhibit will stay up from February 1st through March 1st. During 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., the office hours.
Yes, yeah. And technically, I think it's fine to like show up anytime. I know like they normally keep the gallery closed, but I think you just ask the person who's sitting at the front, like say, hey, I want to see the show, and they'll just go open the door for you.
Awesome. Good to know. Well, sadly, we are at the end. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy this podcast, please follow or subscribe. You can also follow Tired and Thriving on Instagram at Tired and Thriving, all one word. There you can reach out, give feedback, or maybe let me know how you've been uniquely thriving. You can also reach out through email at tiredandthriving@gmail.com. Thank you again, and hope you all have a thriving week. See you next time.